So you're thinking about relocating to the Bryan College Station area. Today in this video, I'm gonna talk about the real costs of living in the Bryan College Station area. Even if you're not moving here, this video still will help. Make sure you stay to the end because I believe number 4 may come as a little bit of a shocker. Now, I relocated here from Arkansas, and on top of me and over 50 families that we've helped place homes here in the Bryan College Station area, I can tell you firsthand what are some of these real costs. And from my personal experience, what I believe is helpful for you. And then my goal is to be able to lay these things out for you so that you can be able to make sure you are fully taking in everything to consider when you're relocating here. Now, most people do come from out of state, so this will be helpful. And just to give you some context, when we moved from Jonesboro, Arkansas, homes there was around 200,000. It actually has changed since we moved, but I'll give you some of those stats. Now, here's the thing. Everyone hears Texas and they say no sales tax. And this is true. I believe this is huge, especially when you come from states that does have it. But that's not the full picture. And I want to make sure that you get the full picture of everything. And sometimes how it's other things that you want to take in consideration. Okay, before we break down the difference of each one thing that's very important to understand is Bryan and College Stations are two cities. And that's why you hear people always combine the two. Bryan College Station, and the initial is BCS, is because Bryan and College Station, what it costs to live in one city is completely different from the other. Now, Bryan College Station is not big, so the proximity of Bryan College Station, I said, generally takes about maybe 20 to 30 minutes to get from one side from College Station to Bryan. So it's not a real big place that you got to think about commuting to work unless you're going to somewhere like Houston. But it is important to understand that from a cost perspective, I always tell people this. If you're going to live in Bryan, then you're going to get X amount. If you're going to live in College Station, you're going to get X amount. So I always found that to be very important. Now, just so you can know, most people, when they come to the College Station area, as you can imagine, Texas A&M is the first thing that people are coming for. And even if you don't work here, you're not relocating here for Texas A&M, it's still important to understand that College Station is where Texas A&M is located. But if you want to go to places like downtown, that's going to be in your Bryan area. We'll explain a little bit more here in a second. Now that I have that out the way, I think the first point is to understand the difference from housing if you're in the Bryan or if you're in a College Station. Now, when we moved from Arkansas, at the time, about the average price point, as I looked it up right now, is around $200 and about $20,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's about the median price. So here's the thing. In Bryan, you're going to have about the median sales price of right around $270. Now, you can get a new construction home right at that $270 mark and get probably about a quarter of an acre of lot, and that is very common. And you can be able to still find some brand new construction, probably a little bit lower in that range. Okay, so that's going to be Bryan, Texas. Now, when you move over to College Station, the average and median sales price is $340,000. So it's almost $100,000 of a difference whether you're looking to live in Bryan and College Station. Now, we'll get into some of the other ones, but here's the main thing that I've learned and understood when you're moving here. If you are considering moving here for temporarily, and you say, hey, I want to make sure that obviously the commute, because I am going to be working at AM, there's a lot of different pockets that does vary. And you may say, hey, I want to establish. We talk about a lot of new construction on our page. It really depends on what your style, what your taste is, and your proximity to maybe if it's A&M or why you're moving here, if that's important to you. And a lot of people move here for family, and they may already know, hey, I want to be established in Bryan. I want to be established in College Station. Now, a couple interesting facts just to say about the housing market. When we look at some of the stats that our local MLS did release, are seeing that obviously Bryan is moving homes much faster than they have been year over year. So here in 2006, and we're towards the end of the summer in August, this is true. And I have seen this to be normally true. Now, just to even mention, if you're someone who's considering this as an investment or you're someone who's going to be a long term, I think this is beneficial. Bryan is where I always tell people that is where you have the most appreciation. You have a lot of plans that has been put in place for Bryan to continue to raise up the value. So technically Bryan is much older and have more established homes, and you're going to see a lot more renovations that is going on in the Bryan area. And so recently, if you look at College Station and Bryan, they have this middle point that I always talk about. It's Midtown Bryan, and right in there is where you're seeing a lot of that new renovations actually are happening. And so if you're someone who say, hey, I want to be able to get, higher appreciation on some of my property, you're definitely gonna look at Bryan. Now, if you say, hey, I wanna be somewhere where I can probably have someone that's already established, you're gonna move to the College Station side. The second point that I want to talk about is taxes. Although Texas does not have state income taxes, they do have property taxes. Now, when you're in the College Station side, you're looking at 1.91%, right underneath 2%. That's before any district. So when you're thinking about the city, the counties, and the schools, you're going to be right there in that range. And I've seen taxes go all the way up to maybe about 2.5 or 2.6, even 2.7 when it comes to certain neighborhoods or pockets. Now, Bryan, on the other hand, is significantly lower. Now, Bryan has about 0.62% per $100 taxable value. And this is before your county, before your schools, and other taxing entities that are stacked on. So the Brazos Central Appraisal District always start their appraisal evaluation around January 1st. Now, 60% of most families, when they're here, they end up protesting and getting a lower rate. So this is normal, and I don't think it's a huge red flag. It's just something you need to budget for. And I'll even tell a story. So I had one family member that when we went in and we bought a home from an individual, this guy had his house paid off, but he was literally in the heart of Bryan, and the house that he was selling was underneath $300,000. Well, when we looked up his valuation of taxes, his home was being taxed over $300,000. Now, we purposely bought this house and got it appraised and for my clients, and it was well under $300,000. It was much closer to that average price point I was telling you about. So it's super important. We actually was able to get them you have the Texas homestead, which is generally $100,000 that you get off on your taxes. And that does not apply until after you purchase the home. There's a couple tips. You probably want to get your driver's license. You want to get all that registered. If you're relocating here, then you send that in, and then Texas will give you that $100,000 credit. Of course, you're a veteran, or if you're older age, disabled, they have extra incentives for you to be able to lower your taxes. Okay, so that's super important to make sure you know. And of course, when you reach out, it's important for us to be able to share that with you on our one-on-one call. So make sure you do reach out so we can schedule that time so that we can be able to make sure we are taking into effect your family, your layout. Okay, of course, insurance, that is something that's going to be dependent on you. I think the biggest thing I will tell you about insurance is if you're looking at a newer home, oftentimes what I've seen, if you're looking at homes for that median price point for either side, we've seen homes insurance to be a lot less on the new construction side. I have seen on average anywhere from as low as $1,200 to maybe up to $2,000 when it comes to a year in insurance. So that's just really a good brief. So if you're playing with a calculator online, or if you're playing with maybe trying to figure out what insurance is going to be, definitely look at the median price point. If you're on a College Station high, tend to lean to more of the higher side, unless you are looking at a new build, and you can probably get to that median range, about $1,500. Now, number 3, utilities. So Texas summer is the real budget line. So just face it, when you're moving to Texas, heat is going to be an important factor when it comes to how much you pay in utility. So what I've seen is that when you get to right in the August and September timeframe, you're going to be hitting a consistent 100 degrees. And a thing just to take in mind, if you're not familiar with the Texas heat, it has humidity. So it's not a dry heat if you're from like your Colorado, because I visited them, like, man, this feels good. When you're here and it's humid, and then you also have degrees of 95, even 100, it can be 90 degrees outside, but it will feel like 100. Okay. But with that, your utility is going to range. It really just depends on your square footage of your home. It's going to depend on 2-story and the age of your home too. I've seen older homes take obviously a lot more to be able to warm up. So you have a bigger family, you definitely want to consider, hey, what side of town do I want to be on? I have seen on average on a normal size home, in, let's just say, College Station on your 340, if you're looking at utility on a higher end, $200 to maybe $300 on a high end. Now, I've seen it on the lower end. If you have certain features in your home, this really is important. Now, we have builders who take in consider insulation, certain windows, shades, and things that they put on their home to make it more efficient so that they can be able to bring their utilities costs down. When I highlight the homes in our tour, we do our best to be able to let you know, hey, this is one of those efficiencies that allow you to be able to lower what your utility bills usually are. So I always recommend, if you're someone who like old traditional home, that's fine, but you just want to take into account some things that's been built into their house could potentially raise your utility costs up a little bit more. And I love the style. I'm all for uniqueness. Just know that you need to budget that in. Now, most newer homes, just depending on where you're living and how they lay them out, I would say our builders have done a great job, especially if you're using a local builder. They have done a lot of work to be able to think about the efficiencies and things that you're not thinking of when you're moving here. And they do a great job when we go in and I have meetings with our clients, because then I can be able to show you that firsthand. Okay, so that's the utility. And before I get to this last point, I just want to make this clear. The quality of life isn't always about the cheapest. And to be honest with you, when we relocated here from Arkansas, we knew that to be true. We actually end up paying more when we moved here. However, the thing I love, not just Texas A&M, you have things obviously like the healthcare, you have a great healthcare system, you have great shopping, you have great proximity to locations like Houston, Austin. And like I said in our other video, is that you get the big city vibe in a small town. And that was the biggest trade-off that I think I enjoy about this area. And to be honest, sometimes if you don't like too much, which is traffic, which is my next point I'm gonna talk about, it's a little bit different when summertime is around and when school is in session. Trust me, you'll know the difference. However, that is something I would say, cost is not a huge factor when it comes to traveling, because Bryan College Station is not geographically a big area. But when you get to where you're getting to, let's just face it, you're going to be in traffic, especially in the rush hour. Because if you're used to a bigger metropolitan area, you're used to toll roads, or you're used to trains, or you're used to buses. Now, they have buses and city buses here. I don't think if you're someone who's going to be traveling a lot, you will spend not as, I will say this, I personally have never rode the bus here before, so I have never actually, I can't give you that personal insight. But from what I can tell, if you're someone who wants to stay in certain areas, the buses do go within the inner area of the Bryan College Station area, but they don't really go any further. Like if you're on Highway 6 and you may stay on the opposite side away from campus, probably don't have a lot of bus options there. They have a few, but not as much. So I would say when it comes to traveling from that perspective, keep in mind you will need probably form of transportation, especially coming here, because you will have to cross over major highways if you're someone who's used to riding a bike or scooter. Now, if you're staying in a certain side of town, say you're near campus or you're in the College Station area, if you're on one side of the highway, then that really doesn't matter. However, when you hit a game day, or if you have a day that they are getting out or coming in, that's going to be something you want to consider. You don't want to be loading up, trying to travel across town on a game day. Don't get me wrong. Even though Texas A&M, if you didn't know, they hold over 100,000 people. So imagine that many people trying to go into the game and then leaving the game. But then also, it's pretty quiet when the game does start. But that cost does factor if you're someone who has SUV or car. Just consider, like, hey, if I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of commuting and I'm going to be doing a lot of driving, just know you could be stuck in traffic, because the only thing that they're doing right now, and it's more coming, but Bryan College Station is expanding their highway right now in 2026. So if you come into town, you're going to see the expansion of highways, and I believe they're going to expand it over to 5 or 6. Don't hold me to that, but I know they're expanding it, because right now, if you come into town or if you're coming into town, you're going to see a lot of construction, especially late at night, because they are working on expanding the exits, expanding the lanes, and so they're doing a great job at it. But I have realized that because College Station is constantly growing, which was voted one of the best places to actually stay, is they are doing their best to catch up with the infrastructure, that traffic and the demand that's come along with people here. So you relocating here is actually allowing us as a Bryan College Station to continue to grow. So I think I'll end with this. If you're moving to Bryan College Station and you say, is this an area that can afford my type of lifestyle? And let's say I'm moving from someone like a Houston or a New York or California, and I'm going to say probably so. You know, if you're used to a big metropolitan area, for sure, I think this will be probably a very good adjustment. It may be a little bit slower for you, and if you're okay with that, go with that. Now, if you're someone that came, like for me, who most of his adulthood grew up in Arkansas, then it was probably a little bit of adjustment that I had to be ready for. And so if you're on either side of that spectrum and you know that, hey, you're serious about relocating to the Bryan College Station area, one of the things I love the most is the chance to be able to connect with people like you when they're moving here in your family and you have unique things that you need to find and you have unique pockets. And whether you're trying to understand the school system, you're trying to understand what's going to be best fit, or maybe your homeschool, whatever that may be, make sure you reach out so we can have a one-on-one meeting so that I can get a chance to show you and give you more insights on what all Bryan College Station have to offer for you. And like we say, your legacy begin when your excuses end. I look forward to being able to chance to speak with you and your family, and I look forward to seeing you on our one-on-one call. And until next time, we'll see you on the next video.